The diplomatic conference room in Washington buzzed with tension, its sleek mahogany table reflecting the glare of overhead lights, white. House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, sharp in a tailored Navy suit, stood at the podium addressing a transatlantic policy forum, her target Canada's trade policies, which she called weak and exploitative, in a fiery speech that had the room murmuring, but it was her offhand. Her remark about Mark Carney's wife, Diana Fox Carney, that lit the fuse. Canada's progressive elite, like Mrs. Carney with her eco-activism, are more interested in optics than outcomes. Leavitt quipped, her tone biting the audience, gasped, some chuckling nervously, others exchanging shocked glances. Carney, former Bank of Canada governor, and a heavyweight in global finance, was in the room, seated near the back, his expression unreadable. Reporters scribbled furiously, sensing a scandal exposé were already lighting up with users decrying Leavitt's personal jab. The stage was set for a confrontation that would dominate headlines. Leavitt, undeterred, continued her critique, unaware that Carney was about to respond. Leavitt's remarks were part of a broader attack on Canada's economic stance, accusing it of undermining U.S. interests. With soft trade deals while Diana Carney pushes her green agenda, American workers are losing jobs too. Canada's lax policies, she said, doubling down. The room stirred again, the insult landing like a slap. Leavitt's confidence was palpable. She was playing to her base, and the cameras loved it. Her team stationed along the wall nodded approvingly, though one aide looked uneasy, scanning the crowd. Carney, dressed in a crisp gray suit, remained still, his hands folded, his silence louder than the chatter around him. Leavitt's words echoed her recent clashes, like her fiery exchange with an AP reporter over tariffs, where she dismissed questions as insulting. Her style was unapologetic, built for viral moments, and X was eating it up with posts praising her as fearless. But the mood shifted when the moderator, a seasoned diplomat, called on Carney. The room hushed, all eyes on the Canadian economist. Leavitt's smirk faltered just for a second. Carney rose slowly, his movements deliberate, his voice calm but cutting. Miss Leavitt, personal attacks on my wife don't strengthen your argument, they weaken it. He began, his British accent lending weight to every word. The audience leaned in the air, thick with anticipation. Diana's work on sustainability has saved billions in economic losses globally. Her efforts aren't optics, they're measurable. He cited her role in the UK's net zero strategy, rattling off stats: 500 zero jobs. You speak of American jobs, Miss Leavitt, but Canada's trade surplus with the U.S. is less than 1% of your GDP. The real threat to your workers isn't Canada, it's automation and policy gridlock. The room was silent, reporters typing furiously, exploded with clips of Carney's response trending under "-u". Carney claps back. Leavitt's team exchanged panic glances. Sensing the tide turning, Leavitt tried to recover, her voice steady but less assured. Mr. Carney, I'm addressing policy failures, not personal vendettas, she said, pivoting to tariffs. Canada's subsidies hurt our manufacturers. But her words lacked their earlier bite, and the audience could sense it. Carney didn't let up, his tone still measured. Carney released in one subsidies the U.S. spends $700 billion annually on corporate tax breaks, glass houses. Miss Leavitt, he cited a 2024 OECD report, his facts unassailable. The room erupted in murmurs, some applauding Carney's restraint, others stunned by his takedown. Leavitt's face betrayed a flicker of unease, her usual poise shaken. Her recent courtroom clash with Chief Justice Roberts flashed through her mind. There she'd flipped the narrative with defiance, but here, Carney's calm intellect was a different beast. Excusers were split, some called her outmatched, others praised her for standing her ground. The moderator tried to steer the discussion back to trade, but the damage was done. Carney's response had stolen the spotlight. The exchange became the story of the forum. Leavitt, known for her combative style on shows like Culver's, where she'd sparred over press freedom, was uncharacteristically quiet as Carney continued. If you want to talk trade, let's talk facts, not feelings, he said, citing Canada's $2 billion investment in U.S. manufacturing. Your rhetoric risks a trade war that'll hurt both our economies. His voice never wavered, but the rebuke was brutal in its clarity. Leavitt's team whispered frantically. One aide, passing her a note, she ignored. The audience, once divided, was now captivated by Carney's command of the room. Reporters noted his restraint, a stark contrast to Leavitt's earlier bravado. Exposed it, compared it to her clash with Michael Strawn, where she dominated, but here she was on the ropes. The moderator called for a break, but the tension lingered. Leavitt's insult had backfired, and Carney's response, calm, factual, devastating, had left her speechless. The room and the internet wouldn't forget it. The break didn't cool the atmosphere. Reporters swarmed Leavitt as she stepped off the stage, her team forming a protective barrier. No comment. She snapped her usual fire-dimmed. Carney, meanwhile, was mobbed by admirers, his calm demeanor unchanged. He declined interviews, saying only, "Let's keep this about policy, not personalities." His restraint only amplified his victory. X was a battlefield. Dan Levittown trended alongside defenses of her standing up for America. Clips of Carney's takedown racked up millions of views, with one YouTube video titled Caroline Levitt Insults Canada. Mark Carney's response shuts her down, hitting 500,000 views in hours. Levitt's team scrambled to spin the narrative, issuing a statement about misinterpreted remarks, but it fell flat. Her insult, meant to score points, had instead exposed her to a masterclass in restraint. The forum resumed, but the focus stayed on Carney's clapback. Levitt sat through the next session, her expression composed but her silence deafening. Back in the conference hall, the discussion shifted to trade agreements, but Leavitt's earlier spark was gone. She answered questions, curtly avoiding eye contact with Carney, who spoke with the same measured precision. He didn't gloat, didn't need to. His point was made. The audience, once energized by Levitt's boldness, now whispered about her misstep. Her insult had been a calculated risk, echoing her past successes like her viral takedown of Whoopi Goldberg on The View. But Carney wasn't a talk show host, he was a global figure with decades of data at his fingertips. Levitt's team huddled during a coffee break, debating damage control. One suggested a follow-up press conference to refocus on tariffs, but Levitt shook her head. Let it die down, she muttered, though she knew X wouldn't let it go. Hosts were already dissecting her body language, noting her clenched hands during Carney's response. The narrative was slipping, and she felt it. The fallout spread fast. By evening, news outlets ran with the story. Levitt's insult backfires as Carney delivers masterful rebuttal. A Yahoo piece called it a lesson in diplomacy. Pundits debated whether Levitt's brash style, effective in press briefings, was a liability in high-stakes forums. Her supporters on X rallied, calling Carney elitist and praising Levitt's America First stance, but the broader consensus favored Carney. His calm, fact-based approach resonated, especially against Levitt's personal jab. Her team leaked a statement to Fox News, framing her as a victim of globalist pylon, but it gained little traction. Carney, meanwhile, returned to Canada, where headlines hailed him as a national hero. Levitt's insult had been a gamble, banking on her usual ability to dominate, but Carney's response, cool, calculated, and unrelenting, had flipped the script, leaving her stunned and the room in awe. The next day, Levitt faced the press corps, her confidence back, but tempered. I stand by my critique of Canada's trade policies, she said, sidestepping the Carney insult. When pressed, she offered a half apology. Personal remarks weren't my intent. Let's focus on the issues. It was a rare retreat for someone who'd a career on never backing down from her clashes with to her courtroom defiance against Roberts' exclusers. Notice some calling it growth, others weakness. Her team pushed a new narrative, highlighting her youth and tenacity, but the Carney moment lingered. Post compared it to her Strand debate, where she'd thrived, underscoring how Kaz's intellect had been a different challenge. The administration backed her, with Trump tweeting Caroline fights for America. But the story wasn't about her fight, it was about Carney's response, a masterclass that had silenced her and captivated the world. By week's end, the incident was a case study in political missteps. Levitt's insult, meant to rally her base, had instead exposed her to a foe she couldn't outtalk. Carney's response was dissected in editorials, praised for its restraint and substance. He didn't just defend his wife, he defended reason, wrote one analyst. Levitt, meanwhile, faced calls to temper her style, though her supporters saw her as a victim of woke outrage. Sex remained divided with Team Caroline post battling Ash. Carney rules the White House, move it on, but the moment stuck. Caroline is backing news, a country America, palinating worlds, and a reminder of the risks of personal attacks in a world of instant viral fallout. Levitt's speechlessness, brief as it was, became the story, and Carney's calm brilliance ensured it.